I've seen many movies that I would consider disturbing, traumatizing, and hard to stomach. Out of everything I've seen so far, I believe that I found the greatest disturbing movie that I've ever seen. Not necessarily the grossest or most disgusting one, more like the one whose effects were the strongest for me. That movie is 2011's Silenced. I saw it only with knowledge that it was based on true events, and nothing could have prepared me for how traumatizing and how horrific this was gonna be. Throughout almost its entire runtime, I was in shock, in awe, I was left speechless. I don't really think there has ever been a movie where I felt so devastated, so enraged and so frustrated by humanity. At times I was on the verge of tears, and like all of those emotions were so impactful to such a degree. This might be the greatest movie that I've seen, and yet I don't think I'll be able to see this a second time. Just be aware before you proceed further that there's a huge trigger warning and spoilers for the movie as it deals with themes of child molestation. If you end up watching this film, be aware that its content is extremely graphic that might scar you for life. I personally doubt there would be anything else that would ever top this. Close contenders for what I would consider the greatest disturbing movies would go to Gaspar Noé's Irreversible, another really devastating movie, the classic American History X with some of the most captivating performances ever, and in more recent memory The Substance, which blew me away. In the case of Silenced, this is a Korean drama thriller uncovering one of the most heinous crimes in recent memory probably, and the word uncovering is used in a much more literal sense than what you would imagine. It's an adaptation of a book named Togani by Gong Ji-young, also known as The Crucible, and the movie is directed by Hwang Dong-hyuk. And if this name sounds familiar to you, it's because he would later become well known as the creator of Squid Game, which is pretty interesting not because it's this unsurprising, but mainly because the same person that is responsible for one of the biggest global sensations of our generation also directed one of the greatest messed up movies I've ever seen. I personally was never that much into fantasy worlds or space or the paranormal. The one thing I crave the most is raw depictions of our reality, dystopian scenarios, psychological thrillers, forms of injustice. And I believe that Silenced is an extraordinary depiction of humanity at its worst. This movie is beyond heavy and dark, and the fact that this is actually based on real events is so sickening and repulsive. I'm always of the idea that no matter what messed up scenarios we can come up with in our minds, nothing will really beat the level of atrocities that are actually real. And for me, Silenced is a really strong indication of that statement. So the story at hand is based around the true events that happened at Gwangju Inhua School that was established back in 1961 and was initially founded as the Jeonnam Deaf Mute Welfare Center before becoming a junior high school. This school had a decade-long record of sexually abusing children, disabled and deaf impaired, and a big portion of the movie covers the trials that took place in 2005, whose results led to public outcries, deservedly so. In the real events, 6 teachers, including the principal, were found guilty of molesting or raping at least 9 of their students. There is also alleged child murder. There are a couple of videos and articles out there covering the extent of the story, in which I won't go on details about. But the final verdict is what makes this whole situation so appalling. 2 of the 6 perpetrators were freed immediately, 2 were released after less than a year in jail, 4 of the teachers were reinstated in the school, and the principal got away with probation and just a 3 million won fine. This case led to the writing of the book Togani in 2009 and was later adapted into the 2011 film of the same name, internationally under the name Silenced. What is really interesting is the impact that this movie actually had, alongside with the book, which is something that I was thinking while watching this, that Silenced brings awareness to such a horrible series of crimes. I was wondering what type of consequence this had to the public, and it went beyond my expectations. This was not simply a movie filled with shock value. It wasn't just media outrage, it actually had real consequences. It was so impactful that it actually led to the reopening of the case the same year. Not only that, the pressure from the public led to a revised bill in late October 2011 called the Togani Bill that abolishes the statute of limitations for sex crimes against minors and the disabled, and also increases the maximum penalty to life in prison. Imagine making a movie, and in this case book as well, whose impact is so big that it ends up to revisiting bills, changing the law of an entire country. This goes beyond media sensation. This goes beyond the significance of a piece of media based on personal opinions. This had actual impact. It's really insane to think about. Now, the idea for a movie adaptation was first thought by the protagonist, Gong Yoo, who upon reading the book, he wanted for this case to be brought to light in a film. And the results are just staggering. Even taking this as a filmmaking standpoint, this movie is so exceptionally well made. From the cinematography to the acting, which is superb. It has a dark and gritty atmosphere with some captivating shots, and the writing is really powerful, managing to really pull at your heartstrings. Usually for a lot of people, and understandably so, they draw the line when it comes to child abuse material and how it is presented in media. In cases it might feel counterintuitive with the amount of success these types of media can garner, and making the whole process not that justifiable. And at the end of the day, Silenced is treated as a true crime drama story. Certain elements of attachments with the characters or plot points you can tell that were made intentionally to create that emotional impact with a melancholic soundtrack and at times cliché shots that can dramatize certain scenes to make them feel more emotional. But it never really felt like it was to a point where it became all that distracting or a glaring issue. To a somewhat similar fashion is another Korean film called Hope, also based on true events about an 8-year-old that was brutally and sexually assaulted. This movie has those concerns that I raised being treated as a run-of-the-mill melodrama story that happens to be a bit more shocking than your average melodrama and also contains an infuriating judge verdict. Now don't get me wrong, I believe that Hope is a great movie. It's just that the overall treatment with the more vivid colors and drama sequences felt a bit off-putting, and I'm not comparing the impact that the movies had on a legislative level, that is not the point. It's just that Silenced felt like beyond just a drama movie. Of course, we're not talking about a raw, disturbing film that feels like found footage, snuff torture porn. It is clearly a high-budget film done in a really professional manner. If this takes away from the experience for some of you, then I don't know what to tell you. Not all disturbing films need to feel like they were made in like a found footage format. And also what makes Silenced so special is that it's not like a constant depiction of child molestation. A big portion is about the trials who are just so cruel and aggravating to sit through. It's a shocking depiction of injustice, abuse of power, display of status. It's like this constant punch to the gut, but that doesn't mean that this movie holds back on showcasing some repulsive scenes. Honestly, getting into this, I was not expecting this movie to go this far, because it does actually show scenes of sexual assault with children, though it never showed genitalia and the scenes were never drawn out. But still, certain moments were extremely graphic, more than what you would expect. Now obviously this raises the massive concern with the child actors that were part of this film. Thankfully, it seems that the children were never touched or being present in those scenes with the adults. They acted by themselves and edited them in afterwards, and the parents of the kids were on set at all times. Hopefully those kids had all of the psychological treatment they needed, because those child actors being put in all of this is possibly traumatizing. And let me tell you, these are some of the most impeccable performances I've ever seen by children. Like the tears, the despair, massive portions of sign language. You're going to be astonished by everyone's dedication perfecting their craft, and especially those kids, because many of their performances are just unforgettable. Gongyo and Jonghyun-mi are also impeccable in their roles, trying to create a safer space for those children and constantly facing the numerous injustices that come along just one after the next, trying to resolve a case after what reveals itself to be a heavily corrupt system. The story revolves around Kang In-ho, a newly appointed art teacher in a school for hearing impaired children. He soon discovers some really concerning behavior from his peers and gets into a difficult position on whether to let all of this slide, as it might cost his job and his economic situation is dire. But things escalate to a point where he refused to stay silent, and alongside human rights activist Seo Yoo-jin, they file a report trying to bring the truth to light, but realizing soon enough that it's easier said than done, considering the police and investigators cover up for those crimes and the children's disability is being weaponized as testimonies that hold no ground and sound absurd. The trials last a long period of time. The confessions of these children go into excruciating details, and the way certain adults downplay the legitimacy of those claims, everything they've been put through, will make your blood boil. I was at a point where I was saying to myself, let this suffering end, because it would just keep getting worse and worse. And the moment it all ends with a final verdict, I was like, there is no way, it can't be ending like this. Mind you, that when I saw this movie, I had no idea about the case beforehand, so every new piece of revelation and any new sign of corruption inside the South Korean justice system was like one punch in the gut after the next. And I obviously suggest that you see this movie without knowing anything about it beforehand, and I assume that if you've clicked on this video and gotten past this point, you've already seen it. After the trials is where I have a small nitpick with the movie that in no way affects the overall experience. The teachers who got away with very minuscule charges are being seen into a club enjoying booze alongside a bunch of girls. They're being portrayed as cartoonishly evil, which, okay, it's just a very small segment. Then is where derives from the real events to have this drama sequence where, conveniently enough, one of the teachers lives alone at night, and also conveniently one of the kids escapes from the house that the protagonist kept him in, finds the teacher in an alley by himself, and manages to take his revenge by stabbing him. The teacher though doesn't die instantly, and upon resistance ends up dragging the kid in the train tracks where both are being killed by a train the moment our protagonists find them, but it's too late to stop them. Despite this sequence feeling just slightly off with whatever the movie was doing beforehand, I understand its approach, and because of the background of the kid losing his brother at the train tracks, who also tried to get away by the same teacher, it's just that kind of plot point that makes the sequence just work really well. And the scene with the protests where Kang In-ho just goes around with a picture of the dead kid is so depressing. And despite all of that, there is a somewhat good ending, in the sense that the rest of the kids that got abused are now being taken care of by people who actually raised them respectfully. Like I said, this movie is going to fill you with so many conflicting emotions, and lots of them, I would argue, were some of the strongest I've had with any piece of media. But the case with Silenced is that it's more than just a piece of media. It's a documentation, an expose of what is probably one of the most horrific crimes in South Korea in recent memory that was behind closed doors for decades. A movie whose attention led to a revised bill But the fight against the corrupt justice system is far from over. South Korea and many other countries have a huge road ahead of them, and this movie is a direct showcase of a system that needs to change. It's a call to action. This is not just a movie that I consider essential. It feels, in my opinion, necessary to bring attention to this story. I watched it, I was speechless, shocked. I even had a nightmare about the riot scene being extended. That doesn't happen with any type of movie, and I've seen some really disgusting stuff, but this one really hit me in the feels. I gathered my thoughts, processed what I saw, and now I can't really shut up about it. I want more people to be aware of this, and I wanted to make a video about it. This is not monetized content, so I don't do this with any financial benefit in mind. I just love talking about music and other forms of media. This is a very special case of a film that goes beyond just recommending it to you, and yet I'm pretty sure that some of you are going to be extremely disgusted by the contents of this movie and never going to watch it, and that's completely understandable. It's not like the most vile, gore, fetish, torture film. There is no nudity or gore, but it revolves around sexual abuse of children, and this is beyond the pale. Honestly, it gets up there, and like I said, some of the scenes being included over here were beyond my expectations. Like, they actually made some really bold choices that I did not see coming. This movie is life-altering, and if my descriptions were not enough to convince you, the movie possibly will. Or maybe even the book as well, which I haven't read yet, but now I certainly want to. Silenced is like a case study of humanity's worst side, and I would change absolutely nothing about it. Truly masterful in its execution, the writing, the acting, everything is just superb and truly exceptional. Let me know your thoughts of this movie down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.